Hello and welcome to Angel's Costumes Behind the Scenes. I'm Jeremy Angel.
And I'm Jonathan Littman.
I'm Richard Green.
Today I'm happy to release our interview with Jane Marcantonio. Jane is the costume supervisor for Strictly Come Dancing. She has been working there for nearly 10 seasons now. She's worked quite closely with designer Vicky Gill. She graduated from Edinburgh College of Art with a degree in design and applied art, specialising in fashion. She's got a huge passion for illustration. She is also a milliner. She worked on film and TV very closely with Julian Day on projects like Salmon fishing in the Yemen, Rush. She's been standby. She's done a lot of different jobs in the film and TV industry, and working in a live TV setting that Strictly is a different experience from most of the other people we've spoken to. So I'm really excited to release the conversation I had with Jane. We hope you've been enjoying these conversations. We've been enjoying your feedback. If you have any questions or requests, please email them to podcast@angels.co.uk. You can visit our website, which is www.angelsbehindthescenes.com, or you can find us on social media. We're on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. We are /costume podcast. If you're enjoying the podcast, please remember to rate us on iTunes. And here is my conversation with Jane Marcantonio. Today I'm joined by Jane Marcantonio. Jane, I've worked with for the past few years on her role as supervisor on Strictly Come Dancing. She's done lots more than just supervising on Strictly Come Dancing, and I'm really looking forward to getting a chance to speak to Jane about what she does and how she got there. And Jane, thank you so much for joining us today.
Good afternoon, Jeremy. I'm very pleased to be doing this, but I'm a wee bit nervous.
Well, hopefully it won't be as much pressure as the dancers get on a Saturday night before the vote and anything like that for you. So the point of these interviews, Jane, is we're trying to show people the different sides of the business, the different areas within costume that you can work in, and the fact that there's so many different avenues to get on and into the industry. And I think your route in is also, like everyone else's we spoke to, is not your normal route in. And you'll probably correct me halfway through and say, actually it was, but I did my own thing on top of it. But I know there's a lot of there's millinery work with you, and there's supervising work, there's film work, and there's live TV work. And when did it all really start for you? When did the costume bug grab you, and how did you get where you are?
Well, I attended Edinburgh College of Art and I graduated with a BA Honours in Design and Applied Arts. And like most people, when you graduate, you've got a portfolio you're really proud of, you've got a degree, you've got a bit of experience, but you don't have a job and you're just desperate to get started. So, like most people, I applied to graduate schemes, jobs, all sorts of things like the BBC, ITV, and eventually I was interviewed by the design coordinator of the BBC, who introduced me to film and TV. Now, at the time, I had no idea what it was all about, but she got me a placement on the feature film called The Jacket. I don't know if you know that film.
Yes, with Adrian Brody when he lost that ridiculous amount of weight.
Yes, and he was actually injured during filming, and so that was with Keira Knightley, and it was produced by Cleary. So as you can imagine, at 21, I was extremely excited about getting this work placement. But we were filming in the deepest, darkest Scotland in a derelict hospital, but it was just great because it got me into it straight away. We were getting up in the middle of the night, we were doing lots of filming, long filming days. I was meeting lots of interesting people and lots of people that I could learn from. I think that's what after about 16 or 17 years in the business, whenever somebody's training, I like to make sure that they get as much out of a work placement as they possibly can. I want them to be able to talk to me about anything, ask any ridiculous questions, because a work placement is about that. You're learning. And I remember when I was learning, so I like to make people feel comfortable and learn from their experience. So then that followed on. There was lots of various costume jobs after The Jacket, because when you're in film and TV, as you know, it's about who you know. You can be absolutely educated to the max and you could have lots of qualifications, but it's very much about who you know, what sort of person you are, and how good you are at your job. So I was just very lucky. I met lots of really very successful people and really decent people that were willing to give me a chance. So my first supervising job was on Brighton Rock,
Okay.
and the designer was Julian Day, and we had been friends prior to this, and I respected him very much. And Shida, his wife, who is his assistant slash supervisor. But Julian was really good and allowed me to supervise on Brighton Rock, the crowd,
Mm.
which gave me the bug because I thought this is really what I want to do. I enjoyed it. It was really long days, but it was massive amounts of people. Like we were starting at 3 in the morning, and by 7 you'd dressed like 200 people. But it was such a sense of achievement, especially for a period drama as well.
Yeah.
So after Brighton Rock, then that followed various other feature films like Salmon Fishing in the Yemen, Rush, Nowhere Boy, about John Lennon. So again, all really good feature films. So I was learning on the job from great people and meeting lots of different actors and producers and crew. I think it's really important to get to know all different types of people in the crew.
Mm.
And I was lucky enough to go to Morocco on salmon fishing in the Yemen. So that was a real exciting adventure, being able to travel with my job as well as earn.
Well, I actually wanted to speak to you about salmon fishing in Yemen because you did standby on that as well, didn't you?
Yes, I switched between supervising and standby on these roles, depending on what Julian needed and how big the crowd days were or how big the production was. So it was good seeing lots of different, just getting lots of experience with different jobs within
Yeah.
a production.
Did you find that standbying was that something you were glad to do because it helped you as a supervisor, or was it was just knowing what someone else in the team was doing, or was it because it takes I think one person's phrase that we've spoken to, it's a young man's game, being standby. And
Right.
I'm not saying that, but I'll quote them. I'm not going to say who.
Okay.
But because it is quite an intense job being on standby because you're watching the whole time and you are the eyes and ears if the designer is not there with your character and to make sure you're. But how was standby? How do you find standby as being a supervisor normally?
Yes, I totally I agree with that. That once I think you have to do standby in order to appreciate what goes on set because you're really on the front line. If anything's going wrong, you know, you're the person that they're going to
Mm,
come to. So you're the eyes and ears and you're watching everything. And that's what you're looking at is going on camera. So you've got to really have attention to detail.
mm,
And then that goes into supervising because attention to detail is important in all aspects of costume. But being a standby allows you to appreciate that it's a lot of work in all the kind of layers of a costume department.
mm. And with it all, when you are supervising, I mean, they're obviously with supervising as the budget side and the financial side of the role. Is that something that you always knew was going to be part of the supervising role and you just accepted it, or was it something you sort of realized as you started doing it? Oh, there's quite a lot of spreadsheets and numbers
Yeah.
here as well as really nice costumes. Was that something you were expecting, or
I
was
think
it?
I think that's what I struggle with now. That as much as I love supervising, you are then taken to a bit more of a less costume position.
Mm,
But it's what I want to do. So you have to expect, especially on big productions like Strictly Come Dancing, it's growing beyond belief. So
mm,
everybody has to have a role within that department. So I like the money side of it because it allows me to appreciate how a department functions because really the money is the crux of it, isn't it? We need
yeah.
to decide where money should be spent, if it should be spent in that area or if it should be spent on somebody that can use their expertise and to make a dress look better in that area. I find it interesting being able to look at money, as it were.
When did I do want to talk about Strictly, get into Strictly, because it's a very unique beast of a program to work on, at least from our side of it, from viewing from the sort of outside the tent, as it were, with the productions that we work on. But when did that how did that happen? I mean, it's a and the other thing I also want, maybe before I go there, is when did the millinery come into it? When did the hat side of things come into it?
Well, I felt that after film and TV, I wanted to do something a bit more that was creative and a bit more back to the roots of what I was studying at art college, and doing something a bit more for me as a designer. So I felt that creating headwear for weddings and for race days or for occasions allowed me to be creative, as well as being able to work on sets and supervise in a more kind of managerial position. But I was also able to be creative and create headwear. So that was really interesting as well, because I could take the links and the contacts that I'd made with film and TV and design for actors and actresses to give me more exposure, which was wonderful.
And is it something you still do now? Is it still going on in the background, or is has Strictly sort of taken
Well,
over everything?
unfortunately, with Strictly and 2 children, it's quite difficult. But I do eventually. My main aim is to get back to illustration, because that's where my heart lies. But it's just time just now. Time is lacking.
No, which it's an interesting. It leads to one of the things that we do want to start talking about to people, which I think I'd love to come back to after we've spoken about Strictly, which is just how, as you've just mentioned, you're a mum of 2 kids, and but they're 2 very active boys,
Yeah.
and they definitely keep you
Yeah.
on your toes, and it's how you juggle the work-life balance, especially with something like Strictly when it starts up. Is definitely something I want to talk about, but I think it's probably better we talk about that after we've gone into just how glitzy and sequiny your life has become on Strictly. And
Glitter in my house. I don't know.
oh, glitter's evil, if you ask me. I've got a real phobia of glitter. It all stems from when I used to do stuff in the fancy dress shop, and you realise if you sprayed glitter or something on someone, or you did it, you would, like, for weeks there would still be glitter somewhere.
Haunting you.
It's horrible. And when bath bombs are a whole nother thing. Whoever thought putting glitter in bath bombs needs to be shot. So
Oh, funny.
so how did Strictly then come? Because it is a massive jump from going from TV and film that you were doing, the rushes, the salmon fishing in the Yemen, the Brighton Rocks, to doing live TV. Because while it is TV and you might have done dramas or things like that, live TV is a completely different circle and beast, for
Yeah.
lack of a better word, than other TV things. So how did that one happen? Because I only ever worked on one when I was doing things. I only ever worked on one live TV type thing,
Mhm.
and it was very, very. It was a different way of operating for me as an AD. So it was like different language completely.
Oh,
Um,
it's actually a real shock. It started. I was 6 months pregnant on Rush, so I was jumping over barriers on racetracks, thinking, I think I'm going to have to think of another way of life here. So I was lucky enough. One of my friends introduced me to Vicky Gill, who's the designer of Strictly Come Dancing, and I supervised So You Think You Can Dance. So it was my first way into live TV,
mm.
but which was a good introduction, and I'm so glad I had So They Can Dance, because I think without that I would have started with Strictly and thought, whoa.
Can I show my cards and just say, look, not I've got anything against Strictly, but as you know about me, So You Think You Can Dance is my guiltiest of pleasure and has been for many, many, many years. And I will not lie, one of my proudest owned things is a message I have on my mobile phone from you when you got Pasha to send me a message. So the fact that you started on So You Think You Can Dance is you that's the pinnacle for me. I think it's all the way down after that program, if you ask me.
Oh, Jeremy, I'm really pleased about that. Oh, that makes that I'll think about. I'll remember that.
So sorry. Sorry. I apologise. I just like talking about Pasha. I apologise.
I'm very happy to do it.
Yes. I could put a picture up of him now just to be looking while we're talking, because that's not a bad thing to look at either. Sorry. So you did say you can dance and then Strictly.
Yeah. So luckily I had that introduction, because I think my day one of Strictly, I thought, "Oh, this is extremely different from a film. Film, you've got a lot of pre-prepping of months to prepare, and we do for a certain extent with Strictly. However, it's live TV. Nothing can beat that buzz of live TV. That once we go, we're going. So my transition from perhaps being a single person into family life and into live TV, it's worked well with my family. And as much as it's very time consuming, it works better for the boys.
Which makes complete sense. And if it works for your family as well as work, then that's a win-win.
Yeah, very much so.
So you met Vicky on. Were you on So You Can Dance? Were you supervising on that, or just doing dailies? Or
I was supervising on that, so that was very exciting. And when I put myself forward for Strictly, I felt it was at that point for my career, it was the best step forward. And that was, now this is our 10th series together, and I think we work well together, and very much appreciate our introduction, because it's given me 10 years of a real journey, as it were, which sounds a bit naff, but that's what it is. It's been and I love how I've been able to be in the Strictly production as it's grown, because it's grown beyond belief. It's a real family show. It's liked by children. It's liked by men. It's not just about people that like dancing. It's about a family show. So I've liked being part of that progression.
what is a typical day on if there the answer is going to be there is no such thing as a typical day, but what if we made believe there was some way that you had to sit there and go, well, roughly this is how a day on Strictly is like as a supervisor. And I suppose we have to say pre-COVID, because COVID's changed everything.
Oh, absolutely,
and I'm not sure how much you're allowed to talk about the process Strictly have got to deal with COVID, so let's probably give that a wide berth just in case.
Yeah.
So, but what is a typical day as a supervisor on Strictly? How much does that the live event on a Saturday and Sunday actually impact what you do on a weekly basis or a daily basis?
The days running up to Saturday and Sunday are actually more crucial than, obviously Saturday and Sunday are very crucial, but Friday is paramount. This is when we do all our fittings. We start, I like to do the first fitting about 7:30, which never really goes down very well, but we've got a real able team of dressers, seamstresses, assistants, pattern cutters, and I like to get started early, because we tend to work very late into the evening, into the early hours. So if we can get as much work done at the beginning of the day, it gives us answers, which is the most important thing, because there's a lot of people in the machine and a lot of opinions. So it's good to get started. So that's when fittings start, and we have the celebrity and we have the professional dancer, and it's a nice time actually for us, because they've gone away and practiced from Monday to the Thursday, and it's great to hear what's going on in their week and what they've been up to, and it's always lovely seeing what they think about their dress or their costume.
You mentioned there the team. Now, it is actually, your team is, apart from your very close group of people, which you've got a lovely team around you, especially the ones that we deal with. I'm sure the others match them all beautifully as well. But how big is the team that actually works on Strictly? When people say the team, what does that actually mean?
Well, when we first started, about 10 years ago, our core team was very small. But we've been allowed over the years to grow, which has been wonderful, and that's been allowed by the line producer. And as the show has grown, our team has needed to grow because there's such a lot of aspects throughout the week that need to be ticked off and addressed, really. So our core team is probably still quite small, and you do know a lot of them, and they are. I am totally biased, but our team is wonderful.
It's always it's not that there's anyone you want to do it for anyone less, but if you get a phone call at 9 o'clock from Megan asking you for something that she wants at 11 o'clock, because it's Megan and the way she is, it's like it's very hard to say no, and you can do it because you want to do it because you guys are also loved. So I completely agree with that. Yes.
When we've got when we're pondering a problem, we're like, should we get Megan to phone? Yeah, let's get Megan to phone. Yeah. No one says no to Megan. So, yeah.
It's very hard, especially now she's got a new kid. It's going to be hard. She just needs to sort of say, and by the way, here's a picture of my new son. And then you'll be like, oh, okay.
Yeah, we've all got our talents, and Megan is very much the go-to.
Yes.
But and I think because we have worked together for many years together, we all know each other really well. And we are, sounds a bit, silly, but we are a real family, and we've all had children throughout, or we've had marriages, or we've had house moves, or we've all had certain things in our life, so we all work together and we all make sure that we're all fine and that we can. And because I think if we're all fine personally, we can work as a team and produce the best possible show.
Yeah, and it's interesting you say that, because we interviewed City Rat Lalab, who's designer from the Olympics and the new Bond. And one of the things she was saying when we asked her about the team, which was when we were asking about the work-life balance, she made the comment, it's not something that you, in your head when you're picking your team, you realize or you think about, but you are actually picking people you're going to spend more time with. So you need to make sure you get on, because they become your circle, whether you plan it or not. So it needs to be people that you definitely get on with. And the fact that you guys foster that on Strictly as well is
absolutely. And I, as I said earlier, I think it's really important for people to progress and learn. So the trainees that are coming in, I always feel that we need to nurture them, and we always stress to them that they're going to be looked after and never be afraid of asking questions, and that they're going to get a lot out of a Strictly placement.
No, it's a great thing that you guys still do, the trainees and those sort of things, and that attitude is fantastic, because it's so daunting when you're in that position and you're such a small part of such a big machine. But the fact that you're sitting here going, no, they are so important, and you make sure their experience, the fact that the supervisor is taking that much of an interest for them must be a great thing for them. And no, that's wonderful to hear.
Because it's important if they're doing a good job. And we tend to, if somebody's been a trainee 1 year, we tend to try and nurture them for the following year. And that goes across the board with all departments, because I think if you've trained somebody up, you want to be able to see them progress, and it makes our lives so much easier when somebody just gets it. And it's nice to see when people feel like they're achieving.
When you sit there and you look at a film, you can very easily turn around and go, well, the supervisor is, in theory, majority of the time is responsible for what's going on with the crowd and organising that, and the budgets and everything that's going on. And the designer is very much focused on the principal stuff. They've got the aesthetic and the look, but that's probably a bad breakdown of it. But in essence, it's a very simple breakdown. On something like Strictly, every person's a principal. Every dancer is a main character. Even if it's a background dancer, it's still a whole vision of everything. It's the aesthetic. How does the division of work between the design of Vicky and yourself work? Because everything is seen very clearly. You can't just hide them in deep background. There's no such thing on Strictly. So
we're all Hawkeyes. Nothing gets past any of us now. I think that's what's important about a designer and a supervisor. We've got so in tune that I've kind of got to know what Vicky's thinking sometimes. And Vicky has Ezra and Sydney as her assistants, and they just know everything as well. They know what she's thinking, what she likes. And I think that's what's important. It's about being one step ahead of what you think somebody wants. And as you say, everybody is a principal on Strictly. So it's the attention to detail of making sure that everybody looks the best that they can possibly be. But going back to teams, we don't, as much as our core team is small, we've got an extended team of people who are, again, total experts at what they do. So I feel that I can go into a Saturday and Sunday feeling so actually unbelievably calm, because everybody is very good and well versed at what they need to do.
And I think that the team that you have got, whether people realise it or but they do realise just how strong your team are, or the looks that Strictly come up with. I mean, when we from an Angel's point of view, when we had to make one of our star pieces that we've got is our Coronation Dress, that was made as a replica originally for Harrods and then was used in the crown as the Queen's coronation dress. We needed to bead it, and we needed to attach all the beads, and there was no hesitation about who we needed to speak to. It was the people who do Strictly's, because they're that good, and that the dress is still here and it's still beautiful and it's still admired by everyone. But that's due to Strictly beaders and the makers at Strictly. So
I think that's what everybody's so fascinated by, the thousands and thousands of stones that are put on one by one on these dresses. It's the workmanship is incredible by the people that do this.
No, it's absolutely incredible. It would be a fantastic thing if one of those people was, like, for example, just a complete goth in their normal day life, that they hate bits and everything like that, and it's all in, but they create such colourful, bright, beautiful pieces. That would just be such a lovely thing, and I don't know why. Maybe it's the Schadenfreude in me coming out or something. So so we have mentioned it there with what you do, and obviously the early starts, as you say, you like it, but makes complete sense, because we know the curveballs that can be thrown. Like, you guys could start on a Monday thinking you're going to be doing this sort of set piece, and it has happened that it's suddenly changed 2 days later to something else, and so the hours are long and everything like that. How do you keep the balance to keep yourself sane and making sure you're not just running yourself into the ground, but B, have enough time to have a life outside of it, especially if it's Saturday and Sunday filming?
I like to strike a balance. I think my husband would say otherwise, but
that's why we don't interview him. It's fine.
He's going to be silenced. It's just about organisation. I find I'm far more organised when I'm on Strictly with the kids, because it's like, if you need something done, you should ask a busy person. It's and we've all got different responsibilities, and it's just about making sure everybody's getting their responsibilities at home sorted, so we can get work sorted, making sure everyone's happy. And of course, first and foremost, my children are our priority, and I like to be involved with school kind of shows or things going on. I like to be able to have a presence there, because they are young for such a short amount of time. And I do what I can with the show. If there's things that I can help with the school, I can introduce sort of maybe Strictly fabrics, or I just do what I can. But I think it's organisation's the best, is the key thing.
It sounds like your kids' schools their school plays and things would be just as well dressed as my old school plays would be.
I bet they were.
Yeah. So, no, but it's no, that's good to hear, because it's very easy in the industry that we work in to be very much just caught up in everything, and everything else takes a back burner, because you're working towards something or on something that has to be done now. We've got to do it now. It's the most important thing until the next most important thing, and you lose track of, actually, this is just it's just this is not life or death. It just feels like it, because we're in the bubble.
Absolutely, that's really well put. And I would hate to, when people are asking me for answers, I would hate to delay anybody, because everybody's got their job to do. I can't say, oh, I'm afraid I'll get back to you in an hour. I think it's important to be able to multitask and think, right, I need to get back to that person, and that person, but also I need to do this, this, and this. So it's just about organising what's important, because everybody in the Strictly crew is busy.
Yeah.
Everybody has such a lot to do in such a short space of time.
No, definitely, and it's and that's which it comes again. It still comes across from all your team, which is even though you guys do know when you're not asking a lot. I don't mean it the way that sounds, but when you are asking for a lot, it's we understand what the pressure is, and you guys understand what we've got, and it works really well. Strictly is one of the not one of the few, but it's one of the shows that actually it does work well because you guys are so honest about it and you hear from us. So if we turn around and we hate saying no and we give a issue, you guys no, well, we try not to, but you guys will at least sit there and go that some compromises can be met, which is lovely, which at times it doesn't always happen that way. But with the work that you've done and you do and working on Strictly, do you ever sit there and look at any of the headpieces or the hat pieces and just go, oh, I wouldn't have done it that way?
Who's listening to this?
It depends if you tell Vicky to or not, I suppose.
I think as artists and designers, anybody that is an artist or a designer will tell you that anything they do, you'll always look at it and go, oh, I wish I'd done it this way, or I wish I'd done it that way. But I think the show is just so successful and it's always beautifully done. I think on a Monday, I look at, I think I'd listen to the public's comments, and everybody's always so positive about everything. So the worries that we've had, say, on the Friday, just dissipate because the public, all they've seen is a fantastic show.
I'd just like to say I didn't realise one of your talents was also tap dancing, because you danced around that question very nicely and answered perfectly there. No, and obviously we work together with Angels and Strictly. How important is the relationship for what you guys do with a costume house, not just Angels, because you do work with other costume houses as well, but how important is it to have those relationships with the costume houses?
We always call you first. Always. Well, I've been lucky enough. I've visited Angels for the past 17 years, and walking the corridors of such film royalty is just, it's so, for anybody, I don't think you have to be arty or creative. It is magical. So I know that as much as I haven't been to Henton in a while, or Shaftesbury, I know that whenever I think a concept comes through, I think, oh, definitely, that's a definite Angels, and you'll be able to give us advice. I think that's what's the most important part, that if there's something that we don't know or we feel uncertain about, we can say to the producers, oh, we're going to phone Angels and get their advice about that. I think it's so nice having, it's just backup really, and it's such historically correct backup, and we always know that you'll have something that's perfect.
Thank you. I know that's good. And randomly from me is, did you always work with Daniel when you came here? Because before I sort of got involved in this side, you've always been with Daniel, if that makes sense. Daniel was always the person I think you went to. Is that true?
I think we had Daniel and Speed Dial. In week 3 we usually do musicals week, so that's always a big Angels week. So it's always like, shall we phone Daniel? Yeah, let's phone Daniel.
I think Daniel got quite put out at one point when I got involved. It's like, but I do Strictly, and it's like, okay, I'm just returning a call. I'm really sorry, Dan. But no, it's well. And is there any advice that you would give anyone who wants to go into a career, whether it's as a supervisor or as a career in costume, or even if it's even more narrowed down than that, and they actually want to work on Strictly or within the Strictly's costume team? What advice would you give someone thinking about that?
Well, I think when you're starting out, my advice is you phone, you email, you do everything you possibly can to get your name out there. because supervisors are quite busy, you want to be able to think, oh, somebody just phoned me last week. I might phone them back. It's I found that I was probably quite annoying back then, but I think it's better to hassle and put your name there, say, look at me, I can do this, I can do that, I'll come and make a cup of tea. It's about being willing to learn. I think that's the best thing, and to send your CV to as many people as you possibly can, and if somebody gives you a reply, because everybody's busy in life, it's about having the manners to reply back, and just all that sort of thing. I think it's nobody's going to come to you. Basically, you've got to go to them.
Yeah, reach out, use everything you possibly can, and you only think it's annoying, and even if it is annoying, it's still a benefit because you're stuck in the head. No, that's really really good advice. No, well, Jane, no, thank you so much for agreeing to do this. This has been absolutely amazing. And actually, a question is: the next 5-10 years, is this you want to go back to illustrating? Is that because you want to take more of a step towards design? You want to do more millinery? What you said that you wanted to go more towards it. What's the aim?
I mean, I love my job, but I'd love to be doing illustrations. So I feel that in a perfect world, I'd love to be able to have my boys, have Strictly, and be able to be illustrating and drawing and creating artwork. I think that's my main aim for the next 5 years.
Well, it's a lovely aim to have, and I hope it's something that comes to be. But Jane, thank you so much for spending the time with me this afternoon, just to chat about you. It's lovely.
It's a pleasure. But this has been absolutely so enjoyable, and I've really enjoyed it. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Thank you.
I enjoyed that because I didn't connect Jane with Strictly, because she's only ever been known as Jane from Strictly, as Jane that worked with Julian. So it was very revealing to me that Jane is as multi-skilled as the chat revealed. And also it was the whole concept of Strictly and what it's come to represent. I thought it was really interesting hearing it.
Yeah, it's been going for 16 years. 16
and
years.
How many pieces of glitter and
they always come up with different ways of doing things, and there was a technique that they frequently use that we weren't aware about, that we were able to use for the Coronation Dress that we created here, and it was a very successful, labor saving and long lasting, actually, because
did you actually see the guy when he came in and he was doing it? It was like amazing. It was like just sort of laying little sequins in straight lines. I mean, it was actually pre-marked, wasn't it? We'd marked out. This was the Coronation Dress that we reproduced for Harrods initially, and then of course it was used on the crown. And it was an interesting process, and it was an interesting technique. We could probably post some of the pictures, couldn't we, James?
Yeah, that's fine. No problem at all.
But yeah, one of the biggest expenses was the embroidery, and of course all of the sequins and things were on it. And watching this guy just sort of just putting them on there was fantastic.
Rachel George, before she started at Angels, was a trainee on Strictly.
Was she?
And again, that was quite interesting too.
Yeah, after the chat I had with Jane, I actually spoke to Rachel but I wanted to know what the experience was like, and it was exactly how Jane was saying. Rachel said they were so helping and giving as for someone who was a trainee, and it was a really good experience for her, and she still got good relationships with all of them as well. But it's lovely to hear that it's not the way Jane wants to approach all trainees and everything, and it's definitely appreciated by the people in that position, and it's a lovely way to behave, or to act as a department, I suppose, as well.
Well, it's such an integral part of the show that it has to be highly efficient, but it has to also be seen to be appreciated by producers and performers and audience.
What they, as you guys have both said, what they can turn out weekly and have done every single year for all these different shapes, sizes, and feels is incredible. And they're actually very good at utilising us to supplement or do the pieces that they don't want to make, if that
and their
is the right way of putting it. Yeah. So No, it was lovely to speak to her, and again, another person who's got several strings to her bow, being a milliner as well, and also really wanting to get back into the illustration side of things. The next interview we are going to be releasing is Jonathan's interview with Estelle Cleary.
Estelle is the head cutter in our ladies making workroom, and she has a team of 6 makers and assistant cutters. And she has had some amazing experiences over many years that she's been with us. And in fact, after relocating here from France, was employed by Angels, and then left and went freelance, and then came back in a management position. And it's a very successful department and highly regarded.
Not only is she our cutter and she does fantastic work here, during lockdown she did quite a lot of stuff as well, making scrubs and other things like that as well. So it'll be a fascinating listen for everyone, and I can't wait to introduce it next week.
She was part of the large sewing circle of makers, cutters, practitioners that were, here we go, practitioners again, making scrubs and giving something back.
Here is a small excerpt of our interview with Estelle.
Jane Marcantonio is a really, she's a senior maker, and she's been all over the places, and she was there. So I was lucky to be in the same workroom as her, and then that's where I met Anne Masquet. She was a cutter at the time, and I just met this new universe of freelancing. But that was not the same. Freelancing was mad. It's like you have to stay. It's not like you come at 9 and you finish at 5. It was long hours, but I didn't mind because I was young. I didn't mind. I just wanted to learn more.